What is up, everybody? It is Bourgeois here, and this is the second video covering the High Mono Synth by High Plugins. We will be covering the bottom half and the rest of the synth in this video. And so after this video, you should be ready to go and start creating your own sounds and adding them into your own productions. So the next part of the synth is the envelope section. So you give it two envelopes, which you have an attack, decay, and sustain parameters, and you also have the velo to envelope. So that basically makes it so that the envelope outputs will be affected by velocity. You're also given an LFO, and one of the things to note about this LFO is that it can generate a sine wave, and its LFO speed, you could start all the way from 0.1, go all the way to 55 hertz, and you also have a phase position of the sine wave. And so essentially you can alter the phase of the sine wave of the LFO. Next you have the delay section, and the delay section is the echo effect. And what's cool about this is you have delay time in milliseconds, but there's this little sync button here, and that will sync to your DAW or your host sequencer, and it'll be in sync with the BPM, whatever you have it set in whichever host. Then you have a modulation parameter, which can source modulation from envelope 1 or the LFO. You also have the feedback level. You have a high pass and low pass filter section. You have a pan left and right, and a mix parameter. Lastly, you have the output, and the output can control the pan position, and also it's basically your master output. It has a limiter that you can turn on and off, and a drive, and that's pretty straightforward. That's basically it for that part. Next we have the MIDI to CV section, and basically you have some various different parameters here. It's all the way on the left. You have the pitch bend range, which you can set the pitch bend range from anywhere from, let's see, plus or minus -1 all the way to plus or minus -12. You also have note priority, which basically if notes are pressed at the same time, one of the pressed notes will be given priority based on this setting. So you can have the high, low, or the latest note that's being played. You also have control mode. So you have retrigger. If you turn that on, envelope 1 and 2 are always triggered by key press. Then you have filter track, which if that switch on, the filter cutoff frequency will be affected by the played note. And then you have the LFO reset, which if that's set on, the phase of the LFO will be reset by each key press. So that goes back down to this knob when we were talking about the LFO. Next you have the MIDI to synth parameters, which you can modulate synth parameters by MIDI signal. You have the source menus, which give you velocity modulation wheel aftertouch, CC1 and CC2, and then on the bottom here you have the oscillator 1, oscillator 2, filter. You also have the VCA amp, the pan, and the delay time. That's the same on this side too. Then you have the transpose section, which you can transpose incoming MIDI notes, either 1 octave to 2 octaves in either direction. And you also have a portamento, and when portamento is turned on, you have this parameter which affects the portamento time. Moving on to the very bottom right here, this little bar, it's like a bar right here where you have randomized settings. You see CC1 here, which you have some various options, and CC2 as well. So with the randomized setting, if you notice all the way at the top, there's this little dice. And this is what's really cool about this, is if you hit this dice, it'll just completely just randomize the settings of the synth, and you can just come up with just a random preset. What's cool here is if you say whatever is selected, you see if I click them, they get grayed out. Whatever is turned on, that will be randomized, so you can actually customize what you want to be random. So say if you just wanted oscillator 1 to randomize, you could just have that on and it'll just affect that specific section. And if you had all of these turned on, it will affect all of them. Lastly, on the bottom, you're given a option to resize your plugin window, which is cool. If you first download this, you might find that when you first open the plugin, it's a little bit smaller. I did increase the size of the plugin window for the tutorial, so you can adjust it just by clicking on the corner and dragging. It's really cool, very, very convenient, very awesome. And the last part of this synth is basically the top. And in the top, it's very straightforward. You're basically given some presets you could choose from, some factory presets, and you also have a user preset section. You have a menu as well. Initialize the patch. You could also set a custom preset folder location or open the one that's already there that you currently have assigned. And you can also, some other options like reset window size, and you can just go to the plugin website, check for updates. Now, the only thing that isn't really covered in the manual, and there's very minimal documentation on this synth, is this last corner. This is randomized setting this dice, and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing, so I'm gonna look this up, hopefully put this in maybe a little slide at the end of what these last 3 little buttons do. And so it looks like you have like a back button, a forward button. I don't know if that corresponds to presets, like when I click on it, but I'm not exactly sure what that does. And this last button I think works as like somewhat of like an undo button. So say if I like click that, it goes back to the default. Click this, it goes back to the default. I'll try and find that out. This is the whole synth. It's pretty straightforward. It's really easy to get into it and start making sounds. So I hope you found this little mini series helpful. There's some more series on the way, so stay posted for that. I thank you so much for watching. Until next time.